This unit is going to move real quickly because you guys were already taught some of the basics of integers and fractions last year, how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide. So what we're going to be doing is we're going to get you kind of a refresher, a quick refresher on integer operations and fractional operations and decimal operations. But then the majority of the unit, we're going to focus on doing word problem understandings. Okay, so you're going to be testing within a week and a half, maybe 2 weeks from today. Okay? When we talk about an integer, the definition of an integer, it's just the set of all positive and negative whole values, whole numbers, and 0. So you already know whole numbers. Whole numbers are positive numbers. So we've got integers, which is all those positive numbers we've talked about before, and their opposites, their negative counterparts. But they are whole values, no fractions, no decimals. And it does include 0 as an integer. So for example, -4, -3, -2, -1, 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. The list keeps going on and on and on in both directions. Those are a list of integers. On the number line, so some of you yesterday were struggling a little bit with Prodigy game because it gave you a question with the number line and you had to place the integers where they belonged. So we know directly in the center of our number line is where 0 is. All positives are to what direction? Right. To the right. All of our positive values are going to be to the right of 0. So starting at 0, counting to the right, we move up by 1. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and so on and so forth. Those are all positive numbers. To the left is where you'll find your negative numbers. So directly to the left is -1, then -2, then -3, then -4, then -5, and it just keeps going and going and going. And one of the things that you want to keep in mind for those negatives, because I think a lot of times people get confused when they're trying to understand where the negatives fall on a number line, or which negative value is larger or smaller than another negative value. So you need to keep in mind that for a negative, the larger the base number, the smaller the negative value. Let's see if I can focus that. All right. The larger the base number, the smaller the value. So for example, a -3 compared to a -7. -3 is greater than -7. So it's kind of like that opposite effect. +3 is smaller than +7, but a -3 is greater than a -7. Okay, it has that reverse effect on it. Any questions so far? Jimmy, you look a little confused. You okay? Here, let's practice for a little bit. We're going to put some of them in order so that way you guys can practice getting them in order from least to greatest using negatives and positives, okay? So if we order them from least to greatest, so let's say that we have a -2, a +8, a +7, and a -5. Right off the bat, we know our negatives are smaller than our positives, right? Yes? No? Yes? Okay. So of the two negatives that we have here, which one of these is the smaller negative, Jimmy? -5. Because the 5 is bigger than the 2, it makes that negative value smaller than the -2. Okay, so again, it has that opposite effect. So we know -5 is going to be our smallest value, followed by the -2. Okay, now we're done with all our negatives. Now we go ahead and order the rest of it like normal because we're just dealing with positives. What's my next value then? 7. Okay, and then followed by 8. Okay, so there's our order from least to greatest. I want you guys to try these two on your own then. All right, for problem number 2, who can raise their hand and tell me what is the order going to be from least to greatest? Christian? Very good. -4, -3, +9, +10. Okay. What house are you? Slytherin? We are. Okay. And then what about for problem number 3? Antoni? Very good. And 0, is 0 positive or negative, guys? Neither. Very good. It's neutral. Okay. And what house are you in, Tony? Gryffindor? Okay. All right. Any questions about putting them in order from least to greatest? Okay. All right, let's talk about some vocabulary terms then, because I think that's a really important thing to understand too. With the idea of positive and negative, there's terms out there that are going to indicate whether they are a positive or a negative. So let's go ahead and make a list. I'm going to go ahead and go to the next page. So you guys should be on your page 5 now. All right, let's start with the negative terms. Who can raise their hand and tell me what kind of word would indicate that it's a negative value? Mohammed? Below. Below is a perfect idea that, hey, if we're talking about something is below 0 or below ground level, then we understand that that's going to be a negative value we're just talking about. What's another one? Jimmy? Less. Okay. Any others? Christian? Okay, down. There's a lot of different ways to say down. We're not going to actually say down, but you probably more likely will see something like decrease, or if we're talking about, you know, we're in an airplane or in a submarine, anybody know what word that would be? Descend. Okay, so we'll put both of those down. Decrease, descend. Okay, another D word would be like, oh, if you're on a roller coaster, what would be a negative thing that happens on the roller coaster? It's a drop, right? Talk about the stock market. Stock market dropped today. Speaking of money, the biggest term we use all the time for negatives when we talk about it. What do you think, Andy? Starts with a W. Withdraw. Good. So a withdrawal from a bank account. These are all negative terms. They're indicating that these things are going to be below a value. Okay, let's go on to some positive terms then. So some positive terms, basically it's kind of like the opposite of what we're seeing. So who can tell me what's the opposite of below? Stephania? Above. Below sea level would be negative. Above sea level would be positive. What's the opposite of less? Zoe? Greater, right? More. So we'll put more, and then in parentheses we'll put greater. What about the opposite of decrease? Celeste? Increase. What would be the opposite of descend? Landon? Ascend. Opposite of drop? Rise. Thank you, Camden, for raising your hand. Okay, what's the opposite of a withdraw? Andrea? A deposit? Good. Did I say your name right? Andrea. Andrea. Okay. All right, so these are some terms that would indicate it's a negative or a positive. So with that in mind, I want you to go ahead and tell me negative or positive when I'm talking about a certain situation. So if I say you're going to gain 6 pounds, A gain of 6 pounds is going to be what? Positive, right? That's going to be a positive 6. What about a loss of 10 yards? Is it Olivia? Okay.
Negative 10 yards.
Very good. Negative 10. Loss of 10 yards, it's a negative 10. Okay. If I say you owe $50, Zoe? Negative. Nobody wants to owe money, right? We'll do one more. 17 degrees below Celsius. Or below 0, I mean, not Celsius. Let's see here. Somebody who hasn't answered yet. Sebastian.
Negative.
Negative. Good. Okay, the last little thing that we're going to be talking about today then, just again, these are all quick reviews. Let's talk about absolute value. So absolute value is just the distance a number is from 0. And something that you should always keep in mind, distance is always what? What kind of value is distance always going to be? Positive or negative? Jimmy? Positive. Okay, take for example, if you're driving in a car. If I decide I want to be like one of those awesome and amazing action race car movie driver, whatever things, and I decide I'm going to flip my car around and drive backwards, is my odometer going to go backwards?
No.
No, it's still going to go forward. Okay, same thing. Okay, we'll take it a little simpler. Today, perfect example, I was driving north on the interstate and then realized I forgot my laptop at home, so then I have to drive south. Does that mean that my distance is going to go backwards now? No. Okay, I'm still collecting distance on my car. The odometer is still calculating in a positive manner. I'm just going in a different direction. Direction is not the same thing as distance that you're traveling. So it doesn't matter whether you are traveling north, south, east, or west, you are still collecting distance. It doesn't matter on a number line if you've got a number that's at -4 versus a number that's at +4, both values have a distance of 4 from 0. That's called absolute value. So distance that a number is from 0, it's always going to be positive. So go ahead and write that down. Distance is always positive. And I'll even put positive in green. That means when I'm taking the absolute value of a number, it should always be positive. So if I take the absolute value of -30, what's the absolute value of -30? 30. Now, sometimes you might have absolute value within a problem. Now, think of the order of operations. Order of operations is parentheses, then exponents, then multiplication or division, whichever comes first, then addition or subtraction, whichever comes first. Your absolute value is kind of like parentheses. You have to do the absolute value first before you can start doing any of the operations. Okay, so in a problem like 2 plus the absolute value of -3, we would have to do the absolute value of -3 first. What's the absolute value of -3? Olivia? 3. So now we have the problem 2 plus a +3. And what's 2 plus 3? Go ahead. 5. All right, I want to try this one on your own, okay? Try both of those problems on your own. Absolute value of 12 and the negative absolute value of negative 15. All right, who can raise their hand and tell me what's the absolute value of 12? Camden? 12. Doesn't matter that it was already positive, it still remains positive. What house are you, Camden? Oh, you're not in that. That's right. We're going to just make you a Gryffindor then, since you're only on my house, or on my class. All right. What about for problem 4, the negative absolute value of negative 15? What do you think it is, Joyce?
Negative 15.
Negative 15, very good. Even though you're going to take the absolute value of negative 15 first, that would become a positive 15. You still have this negative that's going to be on the outside. So now that positive 15 winds up becoming a negative 15. Any questions? Okay, so your homework, printed out some pages from the workbook, and you're going to be completing those tonight or today because you've got plenty of time in class right now to be able to work on it. And if the majority of people finish it before class time is over, then we'll play a game. So the assignment, you're going to be doing problems 1 through 12 all, and then 16 through 17 all. And I'm going to give it to you right now. Now don't panic